Hi friends, I'm Shauna. Welcome to the channel. Today, I'm bringing you a video that I promised last week, and I'm going to be talking all about how to be content with what you own, specifically when it comes to your makeup. But I do think that a lot of what I say here can be applied to your stuff life outside of makeup. One of the first aspects of personal contentment that I tackled this year was my contentment with stuff. And I have brought my ideas about stuff kind of in a smattering of videos across the year so far. And I want to put all of my thoughts into one video to be as clear as possible. There's a couple of mindset shifts that I'll be talking about in this video, but there's mostly going to be a lot of how and action-based things to chat about today, and I would love it if you would subscribe if you enjoy this video or this style of video. I also have a lot of fall content coming your way, and I think some really extra special, juicy, fun videos that I would just love to scream to the world right now and hint at, but I can't because I want them to be a surprise and I want them to be fun. So there's more good stuff coming your way this month. Let's get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is a mindset shift. Then I'm going to talk about what personal contentment has meant for me, and then we'll go back to some mindset shifts. There's a lot to talk about, so we're going to really get into it now. The first thing I want to talk about is reframing the project. And I mentioned this briefly in last week's video, and I feel like I need to talk about this again. One of the biggest shifts that I made for personal contentment was reframing my question of how do I stop buying makeup or how do I stop buying stuff to how do I be content with what I have. The goal in both situations, at least for me, was the same. I wanted to not buy stuff, or at the very least buy less or fewer things. So ultimately that's the goal, but how you get there in both of those situations are different. When I first went on my no buy, I asked myself the former question about how do I stop buying makeup, or how do I stop buying less? How do I stop buying stuff? And when you ask yourself that question, even ask yourself now, how do I stop buying things? What we give to ourselves or think about or brainstorm as possible solutions are very different than the things that you would suggest to yourself if I were to say, hey, how do you be content with what you have? One as well hinges on the buying of things, and the other one hinges on the process of owning things, which are two related but different processes. And ultimately, my belief, which ended up being true, was that if I appreciated what I owned more and I was able to actually spend time appreciating what I have and make the owning part of the process more enjoyable and actually part of the process, then I wouldn't feel this constant need to buy more stuff. I wouldn't feel that dissatisfaction or that discontent that left me wanting more and looking more towards other things, which I guess maybe might sound counterintuitive, but if you focus on how do I make owning things a priority? How do I make my ownership of my stuff more enjoyable? That in itself defocuses the stuff and gives you other tools and ways of exploring things that you might not have thought about when you're just thinking, well, how do I stop buying things? When I was coming out of my no-buy, I knew that I didn't want to be in a no-buy for the rest of my life. So I wanted to carry the lessons of my no-buy with me without making it feel like I was on a no-buy for the rest of my life. And if you're somebody who's coming off of a no-buy, or maybe you are struggling with your no-buy, reframing the question, I think, is a really important part of the process that might allow you to end up being successful in a no-buy because you've made your life, your stuff life, less about buying and more about enjoying the things that we own. Also, when it comes to stuff, a lot of the strategies for no buys hinge on motivation and willpower, which are really finite resources. And so if we think about our stuff and the process of owning things as the goal, then we're decentering motivation and willpower again to another level. So we're not relying on these finite resources. So in this rest of the video, I'm going to answer the question, like, what does it mean for me to be content with my stuff? But I ask you to either pause this video or after, ask yourself this question. What might contentment with my stuff look like for me? And in addition, how will I know if I'm content? Because I can tell you what works for me and what has made my makeup life a more enjoyable experience and things that have allowed me to be more content, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those things will work for you. And for me, just even reframing the question brought me from, let's say step 20 out of 1,000 to step 300 out of 1,000. It gave me many more ideas to even experiment with to see if they would work or not. So contentment for me, number one, was owning products, not exclusively, we'll say mostly, that bring me joy in some way, and figuring out what makes a makeup product enjoyable to me was actually a really fun experiment to kind of dig into, and being able to articulate, I like makeup that does this, enjoying color or texture, packaging, finish, application process, whatever it is. Just kind of being honest about that too. I think that Natasha Denona Glam Palette is a great formula, but also I like the packaging of that. I like the user experience of that product, as well as the color story. I'm gonna lean into that and bring out my favorite products more often as well. So if you're wondering, Shauna, how do I figure out what sparks joy for me? I'm gonna bring it back to the queen of spark joy herself, Marie Kondo. So in Spark Joy, Marie Kondo writes, feelings of fascination, excitement, or attraction are not the only indications of joy. A simple design that puts you at ease, a high degree of functionality that makes life simpler, a sense of rightness, or the recognition that a possession is useful in our daily lives, these too indicate joy. These can be things like a basic tool set, winter boots, a vacuum cleaner, or even a stereo or paper towel holder. She also does try to provide ways of knowing that if how you're feeling is actually a sense of joy. So she will say, like, hold it close to your heart. Do you feel a sense of warmth, comfort, happiness, or a buzz? She also employs tactics like asking a client to pick their top 3 shirts out of a pile, for example. Not the most worn pieces, but the ones that they like the most, that bring them happiness to wear it. So you could do the exact same thing here, but with your makeup. You could just look at a particular category and pick out your 3, not the ones that are your most worn, but things that bring you some excitement to wear. You feel that little like buzz inside that make you want to do a little shimmy. Or you can even take that a step further and build out a makeup bag that way and maybe use that for a week. Let the process of finding what sparks joy for you be a process, but also one that is fun. For me, I also really like the process of putting on makeup, and so I like setting the scene, is what I've said. If the process of applying makeup is important to you, think about what you currently like about what you're doing and how you can do more of that, and also potentially what's not working and do less of that. I love listening to music right now. So for me, part of the process is genuinely creating an ambiance, making sure my space is like a little tidy, bringing my cup of coffee that is full piping hot to my desk, having my playlist ready to go. I love that. I want to spend time to do my makeup and also give myself the time to do it. Not every time can be this really happy, joyful experience, but doing it that way when I can makes all the difference. I also do not do my makeup in front of the sink standing. I have to sit. Even when I've traveled, I will literally sit on a hotel room floor in front of a mirror in order to sit. It's just like something about it. I also like to base looks off of a vibe or just having a vision for what I want before I go in, because I've noticed that when I go into a makeup look, not knowing what I'm gonna do just stresses me out and makes me not want to put on makeup, and it makes the process not fun. So I'll either go in knowing I want to use this blush and create a look around this blush, or create a look that feels this way, or use this palette. I don't necessarily need to have every step of the routine built out, but really making the experience of putting on makeup revolve around something that is known that I want to make that look at. Number 3 is leaning into the seasonality of makeup, making sure that I switch up my makeup at least once a season to keep things fresh and exciting. What I found is that my makeup can be a tool to help me participate in a season and enjoy a season to its fullest. And I learned this last year, and I started making capsule makeup bags in 2021, where I will literally just have one bag. You'll see it on the channel. And I'll basically use that for an entire season. I'll occasionally, go grab a palette or a product from the rest of my makeup collection, or let's say I'm traveling, I need something to be kind of tight and compact, then I'll, make something different for that. But what I found is that the seasonal makeup bag, one, makes the process of putting on makeup more enjoyable because I'm not freaking out with I have all of these options. I don't know what to pick behind me, which has stressed me the frick out. So now I just have my little curated makeup bag. But also number 2, I can make wearing makeup even more enjoyable when I can make being myself or being out in the world or being the season that we're in more enjoyable too. I really just get this pleasure of harnessing the season to affect how I look about myself or how I want to look, and playing with the colors and textures of that season. I know I'm not alone in that, but I've really come to lean on that. And there is this excitement that builds when we're about to transition to a new season. I have really put off creating my fall makeup bag because we're not even in September yet. And I'm like, ooh, fall makeup, fall colors. And I'm getting that excitement out. And now I've made it an event to pick out my fall makeup, which is so exciting and something that I just do by myself, on a random day at home. And I've now made this fun event about picking my fall makeup or picking my winter makeup and just having even more fun with my makeup. The last thing is wearing makeup that makes me feel the most me. This is a big one that I've come to see only really in 2022 that I think is one that people don't really talk about. I think if we're looking at Shop My Stashes or makeup bags or just in the makeup or beauty community in general, we've talked about some of these things before. But one thing that I don't think gets enough attention is having makeup actually be a tool that allows us to be our most self. What I have come to realize is that my past enjoyment of makeup was really product focused. It was all about the product, and I had an interest in the product or a shade or a texture or packaging. It was all about the thing. But in my contentment year, I realized that a lot of how we feel about things or why we buy things, it's actually not really about the stuff, but often they're tools for us to make us feel confident or make us feel a particular way. Maybe we bought something because we were stressed out. There's so much more to stuff than the actual stuff. And I can lean on that in a positive way where I can now make this stuff be not about the stuff. I can make this stuff make me feel the way that I want to feel and embody that and use it really as a tool. I've also come to really think about how my life has been stuff-centered and trying to get away from stuff-centered approaches where I can. And so I do think that arguably if you like makeup or clothing or whatever, there is a stuff-centeredness that is part of it in some capacity. So I think it has to be part of why we enjoy makeup to a small extent, but it doesn't have to be the entire or main reason why we love makeup. What does it mean to be me? How can makeup be a part of that process? Because I felt I like it, so it can be part of the process. And I've talked about how I can use clothing as a tool to make me feel my most authentic, my most me self. Well, how can makeup do that? And I've thought about it in things of what is my signature look? Do I want one? How does that make me, what makes me feel the most beautiful? Is it makeup? Is it not makeup? Does that change with the season? I also began catering my makeup to self-expression and really going to makeup as an outlet for creativity and allowing me to feel ways that I want to feel in the world, feeling edgy or creative or classic or feminine or sporty or the essence of summer or anything of that nature. Makeup can be a tool of self-expression, and the act of applying it and being creative with it matters a lot, but it can also help us feel these other ways, like I mentioned. Now let's talk about 3 mindset shifts. And the first, I think, is one that I'm going to stay on probably the longest, which is enjoying my makeup collection for what it is instead of what it's not. How you do this comes in a lot of ways, but number 1 is tuning out all of the newness. In the early days of my no-buy, I had to step back from Instagram because being on it was just a little bit triggering. I would go on trend mood and then I would see stuff and then I would want it. It was manufacturing desire, really. And so pretty quickly I realized that if I'm not aware of new releases, I pretty typically don't want them. Getting new releases off my radar really turned my desire for things, like it was significantly reduced. Honestly, for many weeks, if not like most of the time, it was at a 0. Sometimes I would, go looking for stuff. Like I would go looking to want things, or I would, come up with a actual gap in my collection, or just feel like, oh, I'm kind of bored. Let me buy something new. Those are other things that I, have learned to combat. But just keeping all of the newness off my radar, at least for a while, it gave me the opportunity to see the effect of what newness does and what seeing the new releases does for my desire, but also for my contentment. What happened was I would see, oh, I don't have this specific thing. Like I don't have this ABH palette or this specific ColourPop release, so therefore I wanted it. But it also came for me to like find other things to not like. As in, I don't have that kind of product. I don't have an orange blush, or I don't own a lip liner, or a dewy foundation, or whatever it is. And so I saw all the things that I didn't have, and I was focusing on all the things that I didn't have and all the ways that my makeup collection wasn't perfect or wasn't allowing me to buy all the new things. That just left me feeling discontent a lot of the time. It really left me just wanting more, really. It affected my mindset because I wasn't appreciating what I already owned when I already owned a lot. It was really particularly striking to see, especially in the first, let's say, 3 months of the year, when I had purchased things at the very end of 2019, things that I had lusted after and wanted, and spent hours picking out, like my MAC order. I spent like a $400 or $500 at MAC at the end of 2019. I spent hours picking those blushes and those lipsticks. I watched so many videos, and really quickly I was on to the next thing. It really struck me that it was never about the thing. What I enjoyed was buying the thing. And so it was really about buying the thing instead of actually making the process of owning things better or something that I did at all. I mean, appreciating something once I owned them. I became addicted to buying the next thing opposed to appreciating what I have and enjoying the process of owning it. That's what I mean. I also learned that I almost exclusively considered my makeup in the pan. What a color story looked like in an eyeshadow palette, or what the blush looked like in a pan or sitting in my makeup collection. Which, sure, that's nice, and color stories do matter to inspire us to create new makeup looks, for sure. But I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about what things look like when they were applied to the face. There may be some exceptions for some truly iconic products, but even then, if you saw somebody walking down the street, would you know that they were wearing Modern Renaissance? Like, would you know that somebody was wearing the Laguna bronzer, or Elisa Eldridge lipstick, or Pat McGrath's eyeshadow palette? No. I think for a while I could tell if somebody was wearing Ruby Woo, but that's probably it. And also for a while, Modern Renaissance. Now, there's so many palettes, even ones that have been iconic. There are dupes. There are other palettes that look that way. It's not just palettes, but lipsticks or eyeshadows, whatever. I do understand that makeup is for ourselves, and it doesn't really matter if somebody else knows if you're wearing a specific thing. That doesn't matter. I say this to say that what I realized about new releases was and this is reductionist in some kind of way, but it was just, this thing appeals to me in some kind of novel way. I don't need every new novel release or anything that feels novel to begin with, because I don't need a dewy foundation, because I won't wear it. But once I was able to accept that most of the time I want something because it's novel in some way, if I'm truly interested in the makeup and not actually interested in buying something for the sake of buying, once I was able to accept that, then it became way easier for me to become disinterested in a lot of new releases. Okay, I don't have that formula of orange blush, but I have these two that are even 20% similar, and they'll give me a similar vibe. And I probably wouldn't be able to notice distinctions on the lips. Like, something doesn't need to be a dead-on dupe in order for it to appear similarly than to another product. When we see two different eyeshadows in a pan and we're like, oh, those look really different, the distinction is much less so even on the face. Like, if I already have 3 neutral palettes, will I even be able to discern the way that particular one looks on the face over that one? I don't really think that I would be able to discern, let's say, the Tartelette in Bloom from Natasha Denona on the face, except for the fact that Natasha Denona has a greater variety of shimmers. Like, that would be the tell. The bottom line of this particular section is that if you step back and you stop focusing on the new and chasing the new and just even paying attention to the newness, you give yourself the opportunity to remove or reduce your desires for new things. And instead, you're creating more opportunity to find pleasure in what you already have and try to figure out and really enjoy what you have more. And one of the things that people say all the time in this community is, I really want to enjoy what I already have. That is said a lot. I've said it. And the 2 ways to do that are, 1, find what brings you joy. Find ways to find the pleasure in your makeup collection. And I've given you suggestions earlier. But number 2 is to shift your mindset to, I want to appreciate what I already own. Like, I want to enjoy my makeup collection for what it is instead of what it's not. And that became a bit of a mantra for me for a while. I've given you kind of one suggestion, but if you ask yourself, how can I appreciate my makeup collection for what it is instead of what it's not? There are things that might pop up in your mind that work for you in addition to what I've already said or maybe said. Number 2, what does enough mean or look like for you, and how do you know what's enough? It wasn't until this year that I started thinking about that question. And there's so much of YouTube that just never even considers this. So I never did. And I was really influenced in thinking about my makeup by all the behavior and actions that I saw around me. In my opinion, if we never think about what is enough, what that means or what that will look like, we will continuously be open to wanting more, and I don't think we'll ever actually end the cycle of more. And particularly because we get used to our baselines. Let's say we own 50 makeup products. Eventually we get used to that, and then we want more. And now within, let's say, 1 year, we have 70 things. That becomes the new normal, and then we want even more things. We let things creep up as we adjust and we get acclimatized, and then we want more. And so just in terms of stuff and not even money, because money does play into it, but I don't think that we will ever be satisfied if we can never accept an enough, if we can never find an enough. Who will put a limit or a threshold on you if you don't do it for yourself? I don't want to live a life where I can't see my stuff around me and spending my time and money buying more and not even appreciating what I'm buying. One of the things that contributes to this significantly are people who are in cycles of just buying, and people whose attention is almost exclusively on buying and the pleasure of stuff comes from buying and not owning. I think this is a way to stop that and ask us to consider our stuff and enjoy the process of owning our stuff, getting used to it, finding out what we like or what we don't like. What was really shocking to me when I was starting my no buy is I didn't know how I felt about so much of my makeup, because the focus was never, the attention was never on owning it. It was on buying it. So a suggestion here is to give yourself a number, maybe per each makeup category or for your whole collection in total, or both. The reason why I suggest that you put a number down, even initially, is that over time, you'll come to see whether that number will be true or you for not. And my suggestion is to put a number not to prove yourself right, but to figure out if it's even right for you anyways. Back in 2020, I was trying to have 1 or 2 products per category. I've come to see now that that only applies for some things, and for a lot of things that's too restrictive, which isn't great either. And when you find a number, let's say it's 6 or it's 10 blushes, the next time you see a blush and you want it, you can then begin asking yourself, if I own this blush, will I be able to appreciate it based on what I already have? And as well, conversely, if I buy this blush, will I be able to continue appreciating what I have at the same level as I currently am, or in a way that is still meaningful? Finding my number has let me find my threshold or my capacity for appreciating what I have. Over this amount, I won't be able to appreciate everything I already have. It means I'm going to be stressed. I'm going to be anxious. I'm also going to have things be neglected. And if you're in the process of figuring out your number, once you give yourself a number, like that is it for, let's say, 6 months, or that is it for the year. And wanting something is not an excuse to lower or increase, not lower, increase your number. And when I've come to think about shopping in this way now, my focus, even when shopping, is on ownership and the experience of owning things. And so now if I'm going to go buy a new blush, my focus is on appreciation. Well, I'm not going to be able to appreciate all the other blushes I have. So owning this doesn't make a lot of sense for me at this time. And I think in a lot of sense, it makes your choice really clear. Do you have the capacity to own more and appreciate things in a meaningful way? Yes, then this could be a choice that is right for you. Number 3 is a perfect makeup collection ain't it. There's a little bit of a caveat here. We need to be able to find the balance of owning things that spark joy or bring us joy, and attempting to curate the perfect makeup collection. Or what I mean by that is those two aren't the same thing. Finding a makeup collection or creating a makeup collection that sparks joy isn't striving for the perfect makeup collection. And that's because, in my opinion, sparking joy can't or shouldn't come from new things or exclusively new things. If newness is the only way that we can appreciate something or allow it to spark joy, then I think that we're in for a problem. I also think that spark joy is a better term than love, mostly because you can have things that you love that spark joy, but we don't need to love everything that we own in their complete entirety in terms of something being an all-time favorite for it to spark joy. In the beauty space, that's how we talk about items that we love. That it's like holy grail, it's amazing, it's perfect, oh my gosh. It's just all of this hyperbolic language. But we don't need to love everything in its being and all component parts of it being the most favorite, beautiful, shiny thing for it to spark joy. Marie Kondo talks about a paper towel holder sparking joy. We have paper towel holders of our makeup collections. Like, there is an equivalent in our makeup collection. We might also have blushes that are 4 years old, but they're still in a beautiful color even if the formula isn't your tippy top favorite. And also if it's not the newest, nicest thing that you own. A lot of us have been conditioned or have conditioned ourselves into loving our newest, nicest stuff. Like that is what we love and what we wear the most. And it is true that it can be exciting to get something that's new, but I think we need to really learn, especially if you're somebody who is like newer on the journey or you're trying to figure things out, for the first time. How do we love our older stuff? Like how do we enjoy the things that aren't the newest, nicest thing? Because if we can't do that, then it almost becomes a condition of something being new for us to really love it and for it to spark joy. But then that also means that the way that the majority of our makeup will leave our collection is through decluttering. With, the search of the perfect makeup collection, our preferences change all the time, if not every year. And so a quest for the perfect makeup collection can just be as obsessive as we were about buying new things in the first place. Or it can factor into that if we were, over consuming people at one point. My thesis is that this is what has led people to declutter a lot. They're trying to create these perfect makeup collections and they just want to own things that they love. And they're like just buying things that they love. And it's all about, new. But because their preferences change over time, then what becomes the love now is different. We might have loved pink blushes 2 years ago, and now we're only into orange blushes. Does that mean we get rid of every single pink blush that we own and we only have one orange blush, so now we're going to buy 4 more? Oh, and then 2 years down the line or 1 year down the line, we don't really like pink or orange blushes anymore. We're now into purple blushes. So then do we declutter again and buy purple blushes? But also over-consuming, I think, makes things worse, is because people often don't think about the lifespan of what we love, or even how, a foundation favorite or a foundation staple, how long we will typically love that versus how long we love a mascara staple or how long we love a blush staple. For me, I can love a mascara staple for a literal decade. I can love a foundation staple for probably, my history has shown me, 2 to 4 years. But blushes, 1 to 2 years. So we need to buy accordingly. And we can't fill up drawers and drawers of things with stuff because then we also can't use it up. And our preferences will have changed by the time we've even finished one thing up. When it comes to personal contentment more generally, to me, that has meant accepting things as they are. I've typically applied this to people, accepting ourselves as we are. But this does apply to stuff. When it comes to makeup, I think we need to accept that we will never have a perfect makeup collection and we'll never own everything that we want. And that's okay, and maybe something that we don't need to strive for. Focusing on appreciating what we love most about our makeup collection and what sparks joy in our makeup collection makes it so we appreciate what we have even more. And it also allows us the space to take ownership of using up what we can. If you want to be content with your stuff, I believe you need to be able to appreciate what you have after it's not the newest, nicest, shiniest, most beautiful thing. And I also think we need to be prepared to own things past the time that they were a favorite or past the time that that thing was your absolute favorite. How much we declutter, what feels right. I'm not going to necessarily be the judge on that for your specific needs. It doesn't really seem fair. But what I think is more appropriate is really coming to be able to keep things in our lives and use them and appreciate them past the time that they're that new, nice, shiny thing. I think a lot of us are really out of practice with that. And I think that's what a lot of people, like when their makeup collection comes to feel old or not new anymore or boring, is when we're not bringing in new, nice, shiny things. We've really become accustomed to sprucing up our makeup collections maybe once a season or a couple times a season, and we really are out of practice at using what we have to spruce up our makeup collection and not going to the new thing to spruce it up, and really coming to appreciate what we already have. And so some of the ways that we can appreciate our makeup past its prime, past it's our favorite newest thing, are some of the suggestions I made at the top of the video. Finding ways that maybe aren't stuff centered, like in making the process of putting on your makeup something that is exciting or appealing or enjoyable, playing into the seasons as well, makes it less on, oh, I own Bite Beauty Chai, or I own this really beautiful, perfect, of the moment fall palette, to how can I harness fall in my life? How can I make myself feel the most fall that I can? And it's not about having the newest, best, nicest product. You know, that's everything I have for you today. I would really love to hear how you, if you become content with your stuff, what are some strategies that you use? Because I know there are a lot of beautiful, intelligent people here who have their own experiences to share. So I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me today. I would love it if you would subscribe to catch more content like this. I think I already plugged the fall content at the beginning of the video, but I'm going to plug it again. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again around here soon.